Hey y'all, this is your girl BMORE and welcome to the Dummies Cauldron.
Hey guys, and so today we are going to talk about Venus being in Taurus. And so at the end of the weekly transit roundup, I talked about Venus moving out of Aries where it struggles at and moving into Taurus, which it is way more comfortable. So we are going to go over some of the behaviors of it for every rising sign. What does Taurus mean and how we can make the best out of it? As you can see, Venus is at the beginning of Taurus at 0 degrees, but it makes a square to Pluto at 3 degrees in Aquarius. What does that mean? Well, Venus is our urge for socializing, values, self-expression, transportation, or trying to convey certain things to other people, versus Pluto, which is a planet for regeneration, reforming, or reformation, destruction, power, and so now we have one planet that is sitting in Aquarius, which is Pluto. It's now awakening, because Aquarius is a sign that it awakens things in people. It triggers things out of people. So we are awakened to the idea that something needs to be fixed, something needs to be course corrected, something needs to be destroyed. So this gets a little bit tricky. Also, Pluto is a planet that sees wealth. I know people want to be like, well, Venus is a planet of wealth. No, Pluto is a planet of wealth too, particularly hidden wealth that we do not see, wealth that isn't as open. That too can also create a little bit of a challenging aspect for Venus, because Venus likes to be outside, they like to be social, they like to have a good time, and we aren't really getting what we really want out of Venus. The other thing is, in Taurus, we're still at the end phases of Uranus being in Taurus before it goes into Gemini in the quickly approaching future. So here with Venus being in Uranus, there's a level of flakiness that kind of shows up. Like one minute we think this is just a normal day, pretty mundane, very blah blah. And then the next minute, we're met with a pleasant surprise. So this can be new relationships, ending relationships, new friendships, and also just gifts. So Venus can also bring presents, gifts, and things like that. Just lucky breaks in general, especially when it sits by Uranus. And so in the same zodiac sign, we have Taurus. In the same zodiac sign of Taurus, we have Venus and Uranus. So let's start to talk about the behaviors of Venus being in Taurus. So here, Venus is very faithful. She's stable because Taurus is an earth sign. She believes in luxury, material objects, or seeing the value of material objects, which is seen as a form of luxury. I know people just assume that Taurus is just like money for money's sake, and it's like, yes, in a certain way, because it's like it has value and it can create a life of ease. But what we're really seeing is that Taurus understands that there's something that needs to be gained, that can be gained from material items that are valuable. It happens to be money. Hopefully you guys can get what I'm saying. But it happens to be money. Here Taurus is very sensual but passive, and so even though there's a sensuality, there's this idea that things are supposed to come to you, which can create also another sense of luxury or type of things almost being like a commodity. Here Venus is very popular with the opposite sex. There's a love of art, nature, very traditional, very social, deep emotions. Now, at their worst, Venus here, if insecure, they can be very jealous and very possessive. And I know they're like, oh, only Scorpio is very jealous and very possessive. And I'm like, no. No. Actually, the fixed signs can be quite ferocious, including outside of Scorpio, but Taurus, Leo, and Aquarius. They're very possessive, very jealous at their worst. And they can be very, very stubborn. Here, Venus marries late. There can be also a love of food. And so some people may be gaining weight or struggling with weight loss because Venus here can make an indulgence or a sensuality. Venus can also help with making people financially successful, starting business ventures, or improving entrepreneurial endeavors. It can help give you perception because Venus is the planet of taste, which can help with the level of discernment we have, which then offers intelligence. Okay, so I know people are like, I just think it's Mercury that gives intelligence. No, taste can give intelligence. When people have bad taste, they do not understand that something tastes, sounds bad, or feels bad. When Venus is afflicted, these people don't understand that. And so by definition, by taking in external stimuli, it's hard for them to make choices because Venus gives us discrimination, which is a choice about what we are willing to do and not do. Well, this can sometimes indirectly lead to poor choices, which one can argue there is a lack of intelligence, a lack of discrimination in the way people's Venuses go. So there's a couple of placements that can give smarts, cleverness, intelligence. Why they give them may be the difference. Why Mercury gives intelligence, why the moon gives intelligence, why Venus gives intelligence, or why Mars gives like certain forms of logic or scientific thinking. They're for different reasons. People can be smart or clever in very uniquely different ways and why, but there's a lot of planets that could give way to that. All right. So let's get into the rising signs. So I am going to start. You know what? I lied. We are not going to get into the rising sign. I forgot to read to you my note on why Venus and Pluto squaring can be a bit tricky. I messed up. So here, with Venus and Scorpio is a planet of hidden willpower, strength, but also deals with relationships. And so Venus is sensations. And so here our sexuality and sensuality is very strong and potent because Pluto gives us power. It leads to things like cheating or wanting things that are unavailable. Remember, we talked about the planet Venus in discrimination and taste. And so if there's a square, which is a challenge, and think of Pluto, or Pluto is trying to transform, Pluto is trying to intensify things. It is trying to tell us things that are deep in our subconscious, things that we see that are valuable, that are worthy. Well, maybe we have subconscious desires of wanting things, but we know that they're not available. But here, when Pluto squares Venus, it makes us want to act on going after the unattainable. And so this could be maybe someone has a nice outfit and you want what they want. And so there's a desire there now I want what they want. It's unattainable because it's not mine. And so now we're considering some unscrupulous means. We're considering $5 discount. The other thing is, this can go into relationships because remember, Venus is so social. She likes to talk. She likes to have fun. So maybe you see someone who is married, they're in a relationship, and there is no way you will be able to entertain this person and they will be able to entertain you. So now we're desiring or wanting people who are unavailable. And we know like how much of a crap show and how much of a waste of your time that sometimes can be when we're going after people who are unavailable, whether they are unavailable emotionally, physically, or whatever. And so this is why I led the thing with intelligence being an issue. Discernment, taste is at risk, people. Like when you date somebody and you're like, what the heck was I thinking? Especially since we can just pop into new relationships with Uranus being still in Taurus, Venus is in Taurus, and then it squares Pluto. So I pop into a relationship, or I pop into something that I'm not supposed to necessarily have. It's unavailable, it's unattainable. I may make a bad decision. Now, the other thing is you can have something so elusive, like very rare, that no one got it. I got something that you wouldn't even think of. That is rare. It's not impossible, y'all. I'm not trying to tell y'all not to like go out here and just like, if something fall on your doorstep, blah, blah, blah. I'm just saying, do not be silly. All right. Now, Venus is going to make a sextile to Jupiter. And in my another video, I talk about for the next weekly transits. And then I'll talk about Jupiter moving into Cancer and how it creates a lot of ease with Venus being into Taurus these days. It's very easy to be indulgent and deluded in the idea that we can have it all. And so this is why I'm being very, very specific. Now, the other thing that this can cause, because Pluto is a psychological planet and Venus is sensations, feelings, or conveying, sharing how we feel. You know, we're relating to other people. This can cause psychological shyness and reservedness, which can lead to issues in relationships. So we keep things hidden on a subconscious level that makes sense for us to share, and we don't. And it just causes more drama down the line. The other thing is we can keep very high standards. We can create money problems while also still desiring wealth. Or we can get a lucky break and still want more. You're demanding now, but so is your partners, the people you are hanging out with, the people you socialize with, the people you're in relationships with. You are looking for an ideal partnership. But it's better that we learn to compromise. Here we see an uptick of jealousy and possessiveness, either by you or others. I would really recommend, if we're seeing an increase of control and manipulation, either by you or other people, because sometimes these type of placements kind of take people off guard that they really being troublemakers themselves. And it happens, you know, people make mistakes. Try to put some distance between that. If someone's trying to do all of this spinning for you, you try to get out of there, because power plays are on the menu. I would actually recommend you to avoid high risk financial decisions. And the best thing you can do with this is use it to pay off debt. Pay off debts. If you owe something or you were supposed to do something, you have obligations, resolve them. The other thing I would say is to delve deep into your values. What are they? Because outside of Venus offering pleasure, luxury, socializing, Venus can also offer principles or some type of rule or value that we hold dear. And so now with all of this newness coming in, new people, new relationships, etc., and also this whole idea that we really want to deeply transform or renew ourselves or kind of come up with a new identity into some regards. What are your values now? I think it's easier to get into trouble with chasing things that are unattainable, being demanding, getting into these weird power plays when we don't understand what we value and what we want out of life. So that is what I would really recommend, and that would really save you a lot of the drama. So let's start with the rising signs. Now we're going to get into the rising signs. So here, for Aries, we're going to start with Aries. This is going to be in your second house. Oh, and just so we clear, this is for rising signs in particular. If you want to do the sun and moon, this is not necessarily equipped for the sun and moon. This is more so equipped for risings. If you want to do the sun, I would actually recommend you to just do the sun for this one. Yeah. Moons are a little bit, I would say they're a little bit tricky for this one. But this one is just for risings and then secondary suns, okay? So, for Aries risings, this will be in your second house. So Venus is going to move into the house of values and money. It's also going to move into the house of immediate family, and also how does your voice sound, you know? So this will bring materialism. You really like money, you really like tangible things, nice items, and also luxurious lifestyles. You may be even attracted to money earned through artistic endeavors or certain forms of extravagance. I can also see creative writing, because remember we talked about Venus being associated with conveying or sharing messages to people and hoping that they get it. And so creative writing, poetry is very popular at this time. And so this brings out a total theme for Aries, is the idea of materialism. And so the problem that we're going to have here with Pluto being in the 11th house, that can bring in ideas around what is fulfilling, because the 11th house with Pluto being there is our aims, it's our desires. And so we're looking for ways to fulfill our desires of materialism. You know, Pluto in the 11th house can bring transformation through friends, but we have to be cautious. It's very important now, Aries, that you align yourself with people who can be a force of positive change rather than steer you down the wrong path, because for some reason you're more psychologically impressionable now. The challenge here is to maintain healthy distance, because it's really easy for you to be all consumed into these causes and groups and ideas and how I think and how I feel. Well, who are you? What do you think? What do you feel? What is your values? Do you really want to do this all day? Throughout this transit, you will at least also meet a few influential people or very important people. All right. And that can very well be a way that we are able to launch ourselves into making the financial choices, the materialism, the luxurious lifestyle that we want. Also, Pluto is sitting in the house of earnings from career. And so maybe we can make more powerful decisions and earnings from career. Maybe we have more financial earning power that comes by way of our career. It also deals with older siblings. And so Aries, if you are a person with an older sibling, you might have to be careful about their influence and their behaviors as you're interacting with them. You're also very loyal now, and there could be strong community ties. There's a strong indicator to reform or make plans for the world or world affairs. And so you want to do something like you want to make the world a better place. But again, just be careful with who you're hanging around. And depending on how bad it is for you, and this is based off of your personal chart, not the transits though, depending how your chart is aspected, it may even force you into being a loner. All right. So take care, Aries. Alrighty, for my Tauruses. So this is going to happen in your first house. And so Venus in the first house gives us charm and popularity. Pluto is going to be in your 10th house. And so that is going to give you political movements, politicking. Okay. And so we're going to see you make political moves around being popular, trying to win over the public, and being charming. Venus in the first house gives us health, beauty, happiness, strong constitution, so strong beliefs and values. It also makes us passionate and extravagant. Pluto in the 10th house is a very tricky beast, okay? Because Pluto in the 10th, your career reaches a pinnacle when it goes there. But you have to be careful about the attention you use, as you can use your drive and ambition to help you succeed. But there is a challenge that you have to resist to go after people around you and above you that are on like the higher pecking order than you. That's why it's charm and politicking, you know, popular politics. So you can also get caught up in the power plays without even realizing it. And by that time, it's too late. Whatever you spent years of building up, trying to achieve, is down the drain. Okay? And although we're self-assertive and we like to fight for our goals, we're very brave, we have to resist being a dictator. A lot of innovation can come from here, but so can a lot of megalomania. Okay? Bottom line, you're either going to be loved or hated, but you won't be ignored. You know, there's a strong obsession with being number one. You can also be able to present things in a more elegant, charming way to the public. But there is definitely a very cunning, vindictive, sadistic, and possibly even going into cheating side. Like you will go whole Game of Thrones out here. All right? So you really do need to be very, very careful, Taurus, and you need to figure out what you value, because rule number one of warfare is you don't make unnecessary enemies. And I feel like for Taurus people, they're quickly, if they're not smart about this, you know, they're quickly broaching that place quickly, because you're either at a pinnacle high, people either really like you, but when you go to the other or the dark end, you're so diabolical, no one likes you, you know. And it's easy to get there by being extreme. Just be nice. People want to like you anyway. Just be nice. It's not that deep. Good luck, Taurus. Alrighty, for my Geminis. So here, Venus is in your 12th house. And so there's a strong, sensual, extravagant, wealthy enjoyment that comes out of here. They can also be like a very secluded thing. We also see secret fantasies also tend to bubble up or come to the surface. So here, Pluto is in the 9th house for you. I would call Pluto here pioneering. And so although you're sympathetic, you can also be pioneering simultaneously. And so Pluto in the 9th house takes you to places you've never been before. You're more open to religion, spirituality. This might take more added importance to you, as far as in also digging into like deep knowledge or trying to understand your world or yourself. This can also take you into higher education, exploring other cultures, really stepping out of the status quo. There's a restless adventurer just waiting to discover. You're very open-minded, you're a dreamer, and you're willing to go after your dreams at this time. This could be good for traveling. But I also see this outside of like learning and traveling and all this other stuff. This can also make you a refugee, where you have to travel from one place to one place out of like the destruction or the turmoil or reformation in your homeland. Here, you can also be a very prolific writer in either the occult, mysteries, or sex. Maybe you write a 50 Shades of Grey book. Maybe you write a murder mystery, but neither here nor there, you would be good at it. This is also a placement where you may consider changing your religion, culture. But at its worst, I would tell you to be very mindful, because this can create legal problems that develop at the time, which is really unfavorable for you initiating it. I wouldn't tell you to initiate it. If you have to deal with it, you deal with it and move on. But you starting legal issues? No. The other thing is, this can really create a lot of issues with bigots, people who are prejudiced. They're closed-minded and they won't listen to other people. You have to be careful about that, because yes, you're pioneering, you want to go to places you've never been before, but try to remain sympathetic. And I will say, with Venus being in the 12th, it does make you sympathetic by default, or make you more open to other people's viewpoints, more, I guess you could say, charitable. But there's a challenge between that and wanting to go out and do things on your own, wanting to really just get out there and explore the world. And so somewhere we have to mesh our sympathetic pioneering behaviors. There has to be some consideration for others while also having some boundaries for ourselves. You know, we're not dismissing people. You know, we're not being cruel. We're not being mean. So my next thing for Geminis is, because Venus is in your 12th house and is getting hit by Uranus, there's a high chance that you are able to get some type of lucky break, some windfall. But I would really suggest you try to keep information to yourself. Do some quiet, leisurely tasks. You're kind of walled off. You're not saying too much. You're not overly sharing. Okay? Try to keep your opinions a little bit close to the chest, especially when good things or positive things are happening, and even negative things, because there is a strong chance, because this is a 12th house situation, somebody could try to weaponize these things in a way that you would not prefer. So you can secretly get something and I wouldn't share it. The other thing is, there can also be, you can be like blessed with like your secret fantasy or things happening. But the other thing is, I would really recommend you to pay attention to your dreams and pay attention to who is gifting the item, because the 12th house is so fickle. Although this is a really strong placement to have Venus in the 12th house, because we're not sure about if we're having proper taste or not, you don't want to unintentionally take a gift for someone who is not well-meaning. Because the 12th house, yes, it can give secret fantasies, secret lovers, tapping into subconscious thoughts, dreams, etc. It can also give secret enemies, or people we are unknown. They're not known to us whether they like us or not. Like, it's not something on your radar. So I really would recommend to you to definitely pay attention to where the gifts are coming from, where people are offering you things. They might offer you something in secret, and it might not be bad. Someone might offer you something, and you know, you're looking at them sideways. It's like, pass. Good luck, Gemini. Now for my Cancers. This will be occurring in your 11th house, and so you're all about material comforts. You're all about financial stability. You can have an uptick in earnings from your career. You can also be surrounded by a lot of friends, and those friends most of the time happen to be other women, you know. And this makes you more friendly now. But let's talk about where your Pluto is. So your Pluto is in the 8th house, and so the process can be a bit painful because it can be effective here, but you should probably use this to consolidate or pay off debt. If you're debt free, maintain that path, avoid financial risk. finances can really change at any time for the better or worse. It really depends on how Pluto is sitting in your chart. But really with finances, really be careful, read the fine print, because the 8th house is other people's money, other people's finances. The 11th house is your money that you make from your earnings from career. So you really want to be cautious when dealing with these things, okay? Now on to a little bit more lighter themes. Just a little bit. Now here, Pluto gives the idea of investigating. So we have the themes of friendly investigation, right? And so maybe you want to investigate the ideas around religion, the occult, mysteries of life. You also can have a long life. The 8th house is a planet that deals with how long we are alive. It also deals with long-term illnesses. And so Pluto is a planet of regeneration, and so you can have a regeneration or healing of a long-standing illness or physical issue. This also gives us the power to analyze, strong analytical ability. You can also be good with money and have financial power. I would tell you to research, because this is a strength now, but also research medicine, research sciences. You can also earn via death. And I know that sounds weird because it's like, someone's about to pass and I inherited something. Maybe, but this can also be seen as you can also inherit from talking about themes around death or working with it. So like you could be a mortician and you earn finances that way. You can maybe write a book talking about the strangest deaths and earn money that way. At its worst, it can create religious fanatics. So I would tell Cancers to be very careful about what their beliefs are and how extreme they go into it, because Pluto is a planet of intensity. Here you can also be overly sensual, so all the senses, seeing sensational things, hearing the best things, or seeing the best things, or things that you really prefer, eating, like just extreme all over the place, okay? Even hypersexual. There's a unyielding nature here, and sometimes you can push your obsessions onto others. And so although we can make a lot of friends, we have to keep our fanaticism and our intolerance and our intensity on a leash. Everyone doesn't care like that. All right? Everyone doesn't care. So use this time to make good financial plans, research something that makes sense, and live your best life. Try not to harass the public. Good luck, Cancer. Now for Leo. Leo, Venus is going to be in your 10th house. So here it makes you very popular. You can have many fulfilling friendships, recognition through a lucrative career, likely in the arts or respected or well known. It's good to also do volunteer work for others, but you do have to be mindful of certain things that are kind of going on with you now. So here, Pluto is in your 7th house. Pluto in the 7th house can make very interesting but tense relationship dynamics. Yes, relationships can build, but there also can be ongoing resentments that can surface or reach breaking points. And so here we can have relationship failure and a severance at this point. I would tell you to be mindful of entering any type of partnerships, because other people may turn out to be something farther than what you thought or what your perception is. And remember, Venus is the planet of perception and planet of taste, and it's kind of getting a little bit hit from Pluto. So we might not be the most perceptive person about who we're dealing with. Now here, the planet Pluto in the 7th house, at best we would describe it as circumstantial. So I would say you're popular by circumstances. And hear me out. Here, Pluto creates a dynamic and magnetic energy around you, but you're also very temperamental. As impactful as you are, you're also heavily impacted by other people as well. Now, although people can show up to be very different than what you realize or what your perception was, sometimes. What? Cough. No problem, baby. Sometimes the perception comes from different lifestyles. So someone can be from a different place than you. Someone can have like a different religious or philosophical thought or ideals than you. So yes, people can be very different from perception, and mainly because you didn't realize what the differences were to begin with. That can be easily rectifiable, and for things that aren't that serious, you really could just adjust. Learn to make adjustments. But the reality is there's going to be something in this relationship where people are very different than what you thought they were. And as long as it's something that you can make an adjustment for, then I guess you can make the adjustment. If it isn't, it isn't. But you need to give yourself time to learn about people, who they really are, and also see if this is something that you want to deal with. The other thing, Pluto here gives you the idea of marrying or creating partnerships out of necessity. Hence why I said the theme of this for Leo is popular by circumstance. Because the circumstances will drive you into partnerships and marriages and agreements with people to maintain power and the luxury or the perks that you have from your reputation and career. Here, people may elope, they may divorce, or a partner may just vanish into thin air. And this isn't just marriage partners, this is also business partners. Now, the positive here, Pluto in the 7th house, Leo, it makes you a trailblazer, and you can establish a global opinion in your field that no one has ever heard of. So you can establish an idea that's very unique, very essential or locked into you that no one's heard of, or maybe they strongly associated with you. You can get public recognition, which you're probably looking for with the popularity thing, but it's usually tied to a partner, it's shared. Now, the other thing here, because the 7th house is another house that deals with legal issues like the 9th, there can be legal issues. There can also be enemies, and this is all due to a lack of diplomacy. And remember, there's a very moody, temperamental personality. So I really would suggest you not to make any more enemies than you need to, because guess what? You need partnerships to make you successful. Remember, this is circumstantial, and the circumstances depend on how you move through them. All right? Good luck, Leo. Alrighty, for my Virgo, this is so lucky for you. You are going to have Venus in your 9th house. And the 9th house is seen as a planet of luck by default. It's also attached to a myriad of things like education, father, spouses. So here, Venus creates someone who is Venus creates someone who is prosperous. The spouse may be a foreigner. You may be blessed with a spouse in general, because the 9th house is seen as a lucky house. You may be blessed with children, friends, just a lucky streak. Blessings from the type of father or the upbringing that we had. Blessings in education, or to be able to learn things in general. Being lucky for the sake of luck. How wonderful is that? Now, Virgo, Pluto is going to be in your 6th house. And so there can be some job conflicts here. There can be power struggles with supervisors, co-workers. And that could prompt you into wanting to just have this thing where it's like, no, you're not going to do me like that. But I would really recommend you to be careful about burning bridges, because this transit can also trigger job loss, either through layoff or conflict through a coworker. Try to do something positive for yourself. You can start a healthy lifestyle, exercise, but also if you feel like If you really feel like people are trying to bother you at work, I want you to understand that Pluto is going to be here for a couple of decades. So I really would recommend you to handle things appropriately, because you could get into it in your work and day-to-day things with coworkers, people who are subordinates, all of that. So I really would recommend for you to kind of nip this in the bud. Keep all your paperwork, document every interaction. Someone says something, and then take that up to HR. All right. The theme for Pluto in the 6th house will be researching. And so here you're very individualistic and you love to help others. By default, you are a healer, and you can also be attracted to nutrition. Again, that's why I said work on your diet, exercising, because you already have a natural proclivity towards that, because one, you're a Virgo, but the other thing is too is it's in your 6th house, which is kind of like double Virgo kind of nonsense. But yeah, so this will center around vocation, your calling. What do you feel like you're called to do? And so maybe you feel like you're called to serve humanity. Here, you could be attracted to the sciences. But I do also see, because the 6th house deals with chronic or onset diseases that we have to deal with daily, or routines that we have to do to take care of our health daily. I do see where there can be complicated health issues that pop up, whether we work on them for other people trying to solve their health issues, or we have complicated health dynamics too. And so here we can get blockages, because Pluto can deal with detoxification, and so we can get constipation, tumors, growth, acne, any type of thing that is keeping something from expelling it properly, right? But at its worst, even if you're not having any health issues, it could make you a hypochondriac and being a victim of your own psyche, because Pluto is a planet of psychology. So what I would suggest for you is to face your fears, confront yourself. What are you running from? What are you hiding from? And I'm gonna be honest, it's better for you, Virgo, to overcome your bad habits than to let them to metastasize into something really, really crazy. All right? Confront your bad habits. Anything that you're doing that might be out of pocket, might be troublesome, might cause you something down the road. Confront your bad habits. You did something out of line to someone, try to debt the situation, because again, Virgo, the constellation itself, it doesn't bode well for certain forms of corruption. It has a strong need to try to purify it over time, and we're having issues with the purity of it because Pluto is obstructing the detoxification. You don't want your health issues, you getting into arguments, going back and forth with people, to keep you from whatever blessing or whatever lucky streak you're about to get into your 9th house. So if you are having an issue with someone, you are getting into power struggles, handle them by the book. Be professional. If you're having a health issue, take it seriously. Be disciplined. If we're having an issue with your father, sometimes it's the father, sometimes it's the teacher, sometimes the teacher is mean, troublemaking. Try to handle it appropriately, because you don't want to get sidetracked off of what is a blessing waiting for you. You're getting caught up on all of this everyday stuff, and it's hard to manage because this is a Pluto everyday type thing. It's hard to manage all these intense feelings. All right. Good luck, Virgo. Alrighty. Now for my Libras, Venus is going to be in your 8th house. And so here we can have strong beliefs, good health, we can be wealthy, and happiness and money that comes through your partner. You're very sensual at this time. I would really name this Venus a very sensual Venus. Pluto is going to be in your 5th house. So I am going to call that Pluto a risk-taking Pluto. So we have a sensual risk taker here for Libra, which is very interesting, because I remember doing the notes for the new moon and Gemini, and I felt like, Libras is kind of becoming like little bad girls and bad boys. Like, they breaking all the rules, like they not following anything. So sensual risk seekers. Now Pluto here in the 5th house can make love dynamics very intense and obsessive, and sometimes both. And so this can create a lot of drama and turmoil in dating. Creative projects and exercise can be a good stress reliever, but I would recommend for Libras to avoid extreme sports and avoid extreme physical activities. And you know what I mean by extreme. Not saying you can't work out or be active. I mean extreme in that way. I would say if you're a Libra and you're a parent, you can expect your children to really test their limits, and this can be like a battle of wills. Your children are very powerful and they want to set their limits. They want to know what their limits are. They want to test their own power, their own strength, and sometimes they'll use you as a way to test their own strength. I really would tell you to try to be cautious with investments now. You want to be able to make sure that you're thinking clearly when making financial decisions. Now Pluto here can make you a gambler, whether it's for money or emotions. Now you can make these gains, through this type of gambling, but as much as we win, you can lose, but you also can make a lot of gains. Sex can also be a strong motivator because Pluto is a sexual planet, and so is Venus, dealing with the sensuality. But we also can get the opposite. I've also seen, because Pluto deals with subconscious urges or transforming urges or destruction, we can see, instead of it being powerful sexuality, because the 5th house has a sexual connotation and so does Pluto can also bring a destructive quality. And so we can see a suppression of the sexuality, which can give us celibacy, asexuality. It really depends on how the person's chart is aspected. Overall, it can give complicated emotions, creativity. For physical health, it can give you complications with pregnancy. I'm not saying everyone's going to run out here and be infertile, but for some people it can create a delay or some stagnancy into pregnancies. And so I really want you to use this time to take care of your health, Libra. And if you are with someone and you are trying to get pregnant, I really would suggest to both of you and whoever your partner is to work on your health, work on trying to deal with any blockages or detoxifications that you need to do in order to be able to have children. The last thing I would say is there's overall possessiveness that can also get in the way with you having a happily ever after. Good luck, Libra. Alrighty, so for my Scorpios, Venus is going to be in the 7th house. And so here you can have many friends, you're fortunate in marriage and other relationships. There can be romance and money through marriage partners. Again, a very sensual placement, but I will call this overall a harmonious placement. Now, Pluto is going to be in the 4th house, giving a level of complexity. So Pluto in the 4th can create changes in the home and family. There can be a lot of relocation, remodeling, or major repairs. Parents and other relatives can be a concern at this point. But this is a good time to address and resolve childhood issues through counseling and mindfulness. I would also tell you to make sure your property is insured. Make sure if you do have insurance for property or paperwork and stuff like that, make sure everything is up to date, and always check your home or your place that you stay for any damage. That is what I would recommend for my Scorpios. The overall idea of Pluto in this 4th house can bring change and transformation. There's a need to be noticed in the home, but there's also a chip on the shoulder. We also see unusual childhoods for Scorpios. Maybe they had a very strict home. Maybe the home life was abusive, whatever it can be. There's an unusualness in the upbringing. But I do see wealth coming in later years. There's a rebelliousness of established values, though. So how you grow up or what society sees as the established values, you can kind of disregard those and kind of isolate yourself. All right. And that's a pretty little crazy one. But overall, again, Scorpios have a lot of complexity to deal with. But honestly, no offense, Scorpios, when don't y'all? When don't you? There's always some type of complexity with you. But you can technically become wealthy or powerful. But I would really tell you to really focus on what type of benefits that you can get from your upbringing, or what type of power that you can kind of extrapolate from your upbringing or your place of birth. So place of birth, whether that's like your homeland, city, like what is valuable there that you can extrapolate, and that can bring you some benefit. All right, Sagittarius. So Venus is going to be in your 6th house, and I will name this as helpful futurism. I think that is the best way to say what Sagittarius are about to do. So Venus in the 6th house can give people lots of friends, particularly at work and career. They're friends with their co-workers, etc. You may even work in the arts, or you get along well with like your subordinates, co-workers. You work well with animals. You may work as like a tinkerer, or you take care of people. You're in like some type of service industry where you either, service the public, or you physically take care of people's house. So you're like a nutritionist, something like that. Now, Pluto is going to be in the 3rd house, right? So helpful futurism. And I don't want the Sagittarius to get scared, but I want you to let this sink in, and then you take what you need from it, okay? So here, this brings a level of deep thinking. This is positive and useful for exploring your psychological motivations and your needs. However, some effort is going to be needed for you to keep an open mind and to be objective. Really try hard for that one. The last thing I would say for my Sagittarius is that relatives can be very manipulative, and they try to pressure you with guilt. You could also experience difficulties with neighbors, neighborhood associations, maybe some acquaintances, friends. I want you to think about how your future is going to be and what you want out of life, because you have a lot of people pulling at you. Now, you can also be extreme too. So you goofy, your mama goofy, your siblings goofy, your neighbor goofy. That could very well be it too. But like I said, if you realize that I don't want to live a goofy life, think about the future and what you need to do every day to get your life together. All right. Now here, Pluto in the 3rd house also can create certainty. This is also why there's a lack of open-mindedness, because you're very sure about what your thoughts are. So learn that when we're dealing with the idea of authority, because Pluto deals with power, you can still have self-autonomy and authority without other people agreeing with you. Don't nobody have to agree with you. You can still be empowered even if no one sees things your way. But here's the problem for you. You want to be seen and heard. Again, you can be seen and heard, but no one has to agree. Now, if you want to be seen and heard, Sagittarius, I would suggest you to write something, get into stuff where we can interact with people, but please try to keep an open mind, because as much as you stuck in your frame of work, that's probably why your friends, family, or neighbors see you as a lick, because you're not opening your mind to a creative concept that I think my family is starting with me, and I need to see why they're making trouble with me. I think my family has negative intentions. I think my family is using emotional manipulation for something that is either that serious or not that serious, but selfish nonetheless. That's what I need you to figure out. So yeah, this creates an unusual relationship with family and relatives. You don't want to have to lose things that are valuable to you. You can get a lick at work, positivity at work. You can have good health. Maybe you find some money while walking outside. Keep that to yourself. Keep that to yourself, because people might be, what's that movie with Bow Wow where he won the lottery and everybody was trying to like break something, they was trying to like finesse him, or all this junk. I think it was called Lottery or Lotto, whatever. Keep it to yourself. Okay. Oftentimes we see that you guys can be school dropouts, but you still care about education, which is very, I don't know, confusing. Oxymoron. I don't know if paradoxical comes in or it would be used for that. I had to look it up, but very confusing. You drop out of school, but education is important. But remember, you could be dropping out of school because you want to be seen and heard. You feel like your mind is made up, but also you could be dropping out of school because people are manipulating you. You're trying to make it seem like stuff is not important, but you're not in school and nothing got done. Okay. All right. Use this transit to go after whatever you want in life, but learn to understand your strengths and weakness and use that to make strong changes. Now, the caveat for people who don't have a horrible Matilda-like family, like Matilda, that is trying to like manipulate them or start all this trouble with them, there can be a lot of change in family. Maybe there's a separation with family members, separations with siblings. Maybe you feel like y'all not as close as you used to be, you know, whatever. There's something about the relationships comes, there's like a separation, you know, separation with cousins. But there can also be mental health issues and issues with neighbors. So the last thing I'll say to my Sagittarius is please take care of your health. Please take care of your physical health, and please take care of your mental health. All right. And your mental health is probably also another thing why it's going to be hard for you to really tap into whatever wins you're making right now. Please take it very seriously. Thank you. Good luck, my Sagittarius. All righty. For my Cappies, for my Capricorns, Venus is going to be in your 5th house. And so here you're very intelligent, artistic, romantic, sensual, financially stable, and could be blessed with children. I call this Venus the affectionate Venus. Pluto will be in your second house. So this creates determination because the 2nd house is a house of values. So you are determinedly affectionate. So here, Pluto in the 2nd house really focuses on your values. It comes out 2 ways. You can use this transit to clean out junk, clutter, reorganize your space, and generally have a more streamlined and refocused home and work environment. Through all of this stuff, you will really learn about what you are attached to as far as in your material values. Something has to get thrown away and something has to be kept. The next thing I'll say is turn your attention to your personal philosophy and try to initiate positive changes in self-worth, because that will make all the change. So we already have it where we want to be affectionate, but we don't want to be affectionate to people that don't like us like that, or they really wouldn't care if anything happened to you. Pluto in the 2nd house can also have the ability to turn liabilities into assets. And you know what? I have to remember this song because Sin was used to play all the time, and it kind of goes like, I turn a bad thing into good news. All right. I have to find it. If I find it, I'm gonna post it. But that is definitely like the Capricorn thing. Like something bad happened to me, and I turned a bad thing into really good news. I turned it, you know, it didn't look good, but I saw it and no one else saw it. I saw something and I was able to flip it. All right. Here you're able to have several incomes. You can get wealth via sensations or sensationalism. So something that is pleasurable, something that is enjoyable. Now, the con is that here, Capricorns, you really have to resist the urge of treating your loved ones like possessions. They're not. And because affection is important to you during this transit with Venus being in Taurus, you don't want to run the risk of people wanting to like get out of there because they don't like the way they've been treated. They feel like you don't really love them like that. And I know that's hard for Capricorns because they're one of the non-verbal signs. They don't really like to talk that much or be as open. But you don't want people to misarticulate your love or affection or indifference, or you kind of just treat them like the furniture. Because this transit low-key has a desire to be very affectionate and caring. All right. This also brings to center themes around taxes, monopolies, and corporate finance and banking. All of those can be pretty positive for you. Now, usually when I see Pluto in the second house, this can also be another strong indicator of people who can make a lot of money. I mean, with a lot of zeros behind them. Like a lot. You know what I'm saying? But the con is that this can create greed and make people very politically desperate, searching for power. So again, Capricorn, what are your values? What is important to you? All right, for my Aquariuses, Venus is in the 4th house, and I kind of call this like the warm, homey Venus. And so you want to be comfortable at home. You know, you like clothes, you like art, you like luxury, but you want to have a good relationship with your family, with your mom, even have like a good relationship with like your homeland or your place of birth. Maybe you feel like, you know, when I go back home or I visit my parents, I feel so good, blah, blah, blah. That's very sweet. I love that for y'all. But Pluto is in the 1st, and so we're having a little bit of an issue. So I call this Pluto in the 1st the striving Pluto. So here, Pluto creates strong will. It gives you the willpower to make anything you want happen. I really would suggest you to use this wisely versus trying to be controlling or manipulative. Now, to be fair to people with Pluto in the 1st house, I don't always automatically think y'all are scheming and conniving. However, that is a possibility. But I also see that sometimes people can become intimidated and accuse you of being manipulative and conniving. So keep that in mind. But I would really tell you, like, as we're programming the willpower and we're going after the things that we want out of life, your confidence tends to grow. Your confidence tends to grow as you test your limits, you know? And so the more you explore, the more you put yourself out there, the more your confidence tends to build, and you don't have to overcompensate with control and manipulation out of fear because you feel like things won't work out. Well, you never know until you try, right? Now, the other thing is, like I said, the intensity can really undermine your perspective and your efforts. So really give yourself some space to kind of think things through. Okay. Now, again, this makes for a lot of resilience, but there can be infections. Pluto in the 1st house can make infections because Pluto is a detoxifying planet. So you may have to detox some things, release things that are not necessary, whether this be a physical component or a emotional or psychological component. Release the things that are holding you back from being successful, but also release the things from your physical health that are holding you back from being successful. Whatever that is, whether it's, you know, the weight, or maybe you have poor sleeping patterns. You know, if you have poor sleeping habits, you know, maybe you can go on something they call like a sleep detox where you get rid of things. But whatever it is, you know, maybe you change your eating, maybe you eat more home cooked meals. You have to get rid of things that are making you less successful. Detox. You have a magnetic personality, but at its worst, you can lack direction, be argumentative, disagreeable, and uncooperative. And that can keep you from your warm, cozy, homey environment, because who wants to sit up there in a house with your little annoying butt all day? All right. Good luck, Aquarius. All right. Last but surely not least is my Pisces. Now, Venus is going to be in your 3rd. I really call this the cordial exchange Venus. I love this. It's like very fun, cordial, nice, blah, blah, blah. Now, here's the thing. You may be a loner. Although there's a cordial exchange, you may be a loner. Now, this does make a good relationships with like relatives, siblings, and it does create a general talent in the art. And the reason why I say you may be a loner is because the third house requires some adjustments. It's not a very bold house, and so maybe although there's a friendly exchange when talking and interacting with people, it's still like a lack of forthcomingness. There's a lack of boldness, and so it's hard to sometimes make friends if we're not as assertive here, and that could be an issue. Now, Pluto here is going to be in the 12th house. And so here, your subconscious releases long buried memories, and it urges you to resolve life issues. Really try to work through them with therapy, self-help, getting into groups, maybe even reading on different type of behavioral, psychological, mental, emotional problems on your own. Also tune into your sixth sense, because having this perception can also give you a level of self-understanding and protection that you need, because you may pick up on something and someone's like, I didn't pick up on it, and then you end up being right. So Pisces, I would tell you to pay attention to what you're subconsciously feeling, because you are probably right. Now here, with Pluto being in your 12th house, you can also maximize your willpower and the adaptability to change yourself for the better. And so use this for real self-improvement. Don't be afraid. Don't fall short. You have this. Pisces, get your goals in check. We already talked about how this is a good transit to lock in, make appropriate plans, but don't be silly. Don't be silly. If it's something that you can't do long term, you can't pull out of your butt, then forget about it. But don't be silly. All right. Now this, what I would call is Venus in the third, gives you cordial exchange, maybe a little like reserved nature, which can make you a loner. But Pluto in the 12th can definitely double down on this with the idea of isolation, because the 12th house is isolation. And so here, when Pluto comes here, we have to deal with our temptations. So we also have to deal with our fear and frustrations, whatever they are. Now, change is hard, but it is needed, and you cannot get away from it, Pisces. Meet yourself face to face. I think the best thing for Pisces here is to be open, but forgive yourself from the parts of yourself that you hid away from because they were too hard to deal with before. Because you're one of them things, you're one of the placements that can have some psychological placements. You and Sag. So Pisces and Sag, I'm a little worried for y'all, because y'all can have some psychological issues coming up. Forgive yourself for the things, for parts of yourself that it was too hard to deal with and you hid away from yourself. You kind of stuffed it down. Out of shame, fear, frustration, guilt, whatever. Really take advantage of this is getting your life on track. Get your life on track. This is also great for working behind the scenes. This transit can also help you to understand others. It can also help you understand limits. Now here, like I said, brings psychological issues. There can be a level of confinedness because the 12th house gives isolation, and there can be pain, whether physical or mental pain that we have to deal with. And this can come from obscure or unknown places. So that's why I said, don't be afraid to deal with your physical or mental health. A lot of times it's a lot of mental health problems that we have to work through. 12th house also deals with sleep. Make sure we have a proper nighttime routine. Like I told, who has it in the first house? I think Pluto in the first. Yeah, Aquarius. You might have to do a sleep detox. You might have to, when you go to sleep, you don't bring no tablets, nothing in the bed. You go to sleep, you start to wind down for bed by 8 p.m. Like you might have to do all of that. You make sure you take some magnesium before bed to reset your hormones and stuff. Make sure you have that. And this also could be good for maybe some foreign travel. The foreign travel can also maybe open your mind or subconscious mind to different things. Okay, good luck, Pisces. Okay, guys, so this was the end of the reading for Venus being in Taurus. So the next time we shall interact, we will be talking about